the town's last cowboy forced to satisfy all the women of the town. The sun was just rising over the quiet town of Redstone, painting the dusty streets in shades of orange and gold. The town wasn't very big, just a few streets, a school, a small general store, and a church that rang its bell every morning. But Redstone had something unique. It had one last cowboy, a man named Jackson Cole. He was tall, strong, and known for his calm ways and quick thinking. People said he had the courage of 10 men, and everyone in town, young and old, respected him. Jackson wasn't born in Redstone. He had traveled across the West for many years, learning how to ride horses, herd cattle, and survive in the wild. But as the years passed, he realized that the lonely life of wandering wasn't for him. He wanted a home, a place where people knew his name and he could belong. That's how he ended up in Redstone. At first, the townspeople were suspicious of him. They had seen many strangers come and go, but Jackson didn't just ride into town and leave. He stayed. He helped repair fences, fix broken carts, and even helped the school when the teacher fell ill. Slowly, he earned their trust. The people of Redstone admired Jackson, not only for his skills but also for his kindness. He didn't boast about his past adventures, nor did he demand attention. He simply did his work quietly and always treated everyone with respect. The children loved him. They would gather around the stables just to watch him ride his horse, Thunder, as if the horse and rider were one. The women of the town also respected him, though for different reasons. They saw a man who was strong but fair, brave but gentle, and in a small town like Redstone, that made Jackson someone truly special. Life in Redstone wasn't always easy. There were times when the weather turned harsh, when cattle got sick, or when a fire threatened to destroy a barn. Jackson was always there, helping wherever he could. One day, a big storm rolled in from the mountains. The winds were strong and the clouds poured rain down like waterfalls. Some of the town's animals were trapped in the fields. Without hesitation, Jackson saddled Thunder and rode out into the storm. He guided the frightened cattle back to the barns and helped the people secure their homes. By the time the storm passed, everyone was safe, and the townspeople were even more grateful for his presence. But Jackson's life in Redstone wasn't just about work. He had a gentle side too. On quiet evenings, he would sit by the fire at the local inn, listening to stories from travelers and townsfolk alike. He had a way of making people feel at ease, as if they could tell him anything without fear of judgment. Slowly, friendships grew. He became more than just a cowboy. He became part of the town's heart. Even though he was admired by many, Jackson was a humble man. He never let attention change him. When children asked him about life outside Redstone, he told them stories of mountains, rivers, and deserts, but he always reminded them that home was the most important place of all. He spoke about courage, honesty, and helping others, values that everyone in Redstone wanted to live by. Yet, not everything was simple. Being the last cowboy in a town that had changed over the years wasn't easy. Many people relied on him for help, advice, and protection. Sometimes, it felt like the whole town leaned on his shoulders. He never complained, but the weight of responsibility was heavy. There were days when he would ride alone on Thunder, thinking about his own dreams and wondering if he would ever find someone to share his life with. Despite these moments of loneliness, Jackson found joy in simple things. He loved the sound of the wind through the trees, the smell of fresh hay, and the laughter of children running through the streets. These small joys reminded him why he stayed in Redstone, why he worked so hard, and why he cared so deeply for the people who had become his family. By the end of Part 1, Jackson was no longer just a stranger or a visitor in Redstone. He was a hero in the eyes of the townspeople, a trusted friend, and the heart of the community. Everyone knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, Jackson Cole would face them with courage, strength, and kindness. And though he carried a quiet sadness sometimes, he also carried hope, a hope that in this small, dusty town he had finally found a place where he truly belonged. Life in Redstone continued, but it was clear that things were slowly beginning to change. Jackson Cole, the town's last cowboy, had settled into a rhythm of helping everyone, maintaining the ranches and being a steady presence in the community. Yet, even in a small, calm town, unexpected events were always waiting just around the corner. One morning, Jackson woke to the sound of horses galloping in the distance. He stepped outside to see a rider approaching fast, dust swirling behind him. It was Tom Bennett, a young man from a neighboring town. Tom looked worried, almost panicked. "Jackson," he called as he dismounted, "we need your help. A group of cattle thieves has been spotted near the northern hills. They've stolen from several ranches, and people are scared." Jackson nodded quietly as if to say, "I'll handle it," and rode off toward the northern hills. The journey was difficult. The hills were steep and the path narrow. Jackson guided Thunder carefully, scanning the horizon for any signs of trouble. Soon, he spotted a group of men trying to drive stolen cattle down a dirt trail. Jackson slowed, observing them from behind a ridge. He knew that confronting them directly could be dangerous, but he also knew the town needed him. Using his experience from years of roaming the West, Jackson devised a plan. He led Thunder quietly down a side path, circling around the thieves. Then, with careful precision, he made his presence known, standing tall in the open and calling out, "Stop! Return the cattle to Redstone." The men froze, surprised to see Jackson standing there with calm authority. The thieves were no match for Jackson's courage and strategy. One by one, they surrendered, realizing that he wasn't just a cowboy, but a man who commanded respect. Jackson guided the cattle back to Redstone, ensuring none were lost. When he returned, the townspeople cheered, and even the children ran alongside him, laughing and clapping. But Jackson didn't boast. He simply nodded to the people, saying, "It's just what needed to be done." He treated everyone equally, whether they were children asking questions about the West, farmers needing help with livestock, or elders seeking advice. His presence brought a sense of safety and stability that Redstone hadn't felt in years. Life wasn't all about work, though. One afternoon, Jackson noticed a new family moving into the town. They had a small farm at the edge of Redstone and a young daughter named Lily. She was curious, bright, and full of energy. From the moment Jackson met her, he could tell she had a spark of adventure, much like he once did as a young man. Lily and Jackson became fast friends. She would follow him around the stables, asking endless questions about horses, riding, and life on the range. Jackson enjoyed her company. She reminded him of simpler times and made his days feel lighter. Meanwhile, the women of Redstone began to notice Jackson in subtle ways. He was dependable, kind, and gentle, and many appreciated how he always respected everyone equally. He helped them with daily chores, offered advice, and even accompanied them when traveling to nearby towns for supplies. Slowly, a sense of admiration and affection grew in the community, but Jackson never let it affect how he treated people. His focus was always on helping and caring for Redstone. Despite the peace, challenges kept coming. One summer, a fire broke out at the northern barn of Redstone's main ranch. Smoke filled the sky, and the flames spread quickly. The townspeople panicked, unsure how to control it. Jackson immediately sprang into action, directing the fire brigade, helping carry water, and ensuring that the animals were safely evacuated. His calm and decisive nature prevented a disaster. By evening, the fire was under control, and the barn was saved, though it bore some scars from the blaze. After the fire, Jackson walked through the town square, speaking with people who thanked him again and again. He felt a quiet pride, not because of what he had done, but because the town had pulled together. Redstone was no longer just a collection of buildings and streets. It was a community, and Jackson was at its center. Yet beneath all the success and admiration, Jackson felt a quiet longing. He had friends, respect, and a purpose, but he wondered if he would ever find someone to share his personal life with. Some evenings, as he sat by the fire at the inn, he thought about his past adventures, the lonely nights under the stars, the rivers he had crossed, and the mountains he had climbed. They were exciting memories, but they reminded him of solitude. One day, while helping Lily plant flowers near the school, Jackson met another newcomer, a woman named Sarah. She had recently inherited her family's farm and moved to Redstone to start anew. She was practical, warm, and had a quiet strength that Jackson admired immediately. Over time, they began to talk more, sharing stories about their pasts, the challenges they had faced, and their hopes for the future. Jackson found in her a kindred spirit, someone who understood the balance between strength and kindness. As the days passed, Redstone faced smaller challenges, a broken water pump, a sudden illness in the cattle herd, and disputes between neighbors. Through it all, Jackson remained a steady figure, guiding the town with patience and wisdom. The children looked up to him, the adults relied on him, and the newcomers felt welcomed because of him. Even the natural challenges, like droughts and storms, seemed more manageable with Jackson around. By the end of Part 2, Jackson was no longer just the last cowboy of Redstone. He was the town's protector, friend, and heart. People knew they could depend on him, and Jackson knew he had found a place where he truly belonged. But life in Redstone wasn't done testing him yet. New challenges, new friendships, and unexpected events were always waiting, and Jackson's story was far from over. As summer slowly turned into autumn, Redstone settled into a rhythm of quiet days and cool nights. Jackson Cole, the town's last cowboy, continued to be the steady presence that everyone relied upon. But life in Redstone was never as simple as it seemed. The town, small though it was, had a way of presenting new challenges just when people thought things were calm. One crisp morning, Jackson was called to the outskirts of town. A group of travelers had arrived, bringing news that worried the townspeople. A nearby river, crucial for Redstone's farms, had begun to flood after heavy rains in the mountains. The floodwaters threatened crops, homes, and even the town's livestock. Jackson, calm but serious, immediately went to assess the situation. He rode thunder to the riverbanks and saw the water swelling higher with each passing hour. The current was strong, and the muddy water had already started to wash away fences and low-lying fields. Jackson knew the town had to act quickly. He organized a team of townspeople to reinforce the riverbanks with sandbags and timber. Everyone worked together, lifting, carrying, and stacking with all their strength. Even the children helped, passing buckets and cheering on the adults. Jackson moved among them, offering guidance, encouragement, and reassurance. He made sure everyone stayed safe, checking that no one ventured too close to the rushing water. While the team worked tirelessly, Jackson also noticed the animals. Some of the cattle were stuck on small patches of land, unable to move to safety. Without hesitation, he waded into the cold, rushing water, guiding them one by one back to higher ground. Thunder stood calmly by his side, as if understanding the urgency of the situation. By late afternoon, the immediate danger had passed. The river was still high, but the town and animals were safe, thanks to Jackson's leadership. That evening, the town gathered in the square to celebrate their teamwork. There was laughter, storytelling, and even music from a few townsfolk who played old tunes on fiddles and guitars. Jackson, though usually quiet, allowed himself a small smile as he watched the community he had grown to love come together. The children danced, the adults shared stories, and for a moment, all the worries of the past weeks seemed to fade. But challenges in Redstone were never far away. As autumn progressed, news arrived that a traveling show, a circus with performers, animals, and vendors, would be stopping in the nearby town. Some townspeople were excited, others skeptical. Jackson, curious as always, decided to visit the show. When he arrived, he was greeted by laughter, music, and the smell of roasted corn. The performers were kind, welcoming, and full of stories about their travels. Jackson spent the day helping them set up, learning about new skills, and even teaching some tricks with the horses. During the circus, Jackson also noticed the townspeople interacting in new ways. Many were inspired by the performers' courage and creativity. Farmers tried juggling or balancing acts, children rode ponies for the first time, and even the elders attempted simple tricks for fun. Jackson realized that life in Redstone wasn't just about hard work and challenges. It was about joy, learning, and finding moments of happiness together. Around the same time, Jackson's friendship with Sarah deepened. They worked together on several town projects, including fixing old barns, planting new crops, and organizing a small festival to celebrate the town's harvest. Jackson admired her patience and wisdom, while Sarah respected his courage and reliability. Though neither spoke much of personal feelings, there was an unspoken bond between them that everyone in town noticed. People often smiled when they saw Jackson and Sarah talking, working side by side, or quietly laughing together. As autumn moved toward winter, the town faced a new problem: harsh weather and early snow. Roads became slippery, and the supply of food and firewood became a concern. Jackson knew that Redstone had to prepare carefully. He organized teams to collect firewood, repair roofs, and ensure that livestock had shelter. Every day, he rode across the town, checking on homes, offering help, and making sure no one was left behind. Even during the cold, his determination never wavered. One particularly cold morning, Jackson received news that an elderly couple living on the outskirts of Redstone had fallen ill. They needed medicine and supplies, but the roads were blocked by snow. Jackson didn't hesitate. He saddled Thunder and rode through the icy trails, navigating carefully around slippery rocks and frozen streams. When he reached the couple, he helped them into a warm wagon, brought them medicine, and stayed with them until they were safe. The townspeople were amazed by his bravery and commitment. Jackson, however, simply said, "Everyone needs help sometimes. That's all I'm doing." He thought about the years he had spent wandering the West, and he felt grateful that he had found a place to belong. Redstone wasn't perfect, but it was home, and the people, children, families, newcomers, and old friends, had become like family. By midwinter, Jackson had become more than just the last cowboy of Redstone. He was a guide, a protector, a teacher, and a friend. He had helped the town face floods, fires, and snowstorms, and he had brought joy and inspiration through his quiet courage. Even the smallest residents, the children, had grown up watching him as a model of kindness, bravery, and responsibility. Yet, Jackson's story wasn't just about challenges. It was also about growth, connections, and trust. People started relying on one another more, inspired by the way Jackson led. He showed them that facing difficulties with patience, courage, and cooperation could bring people closer together. Redstone was becoming more than just a town. It was becoming a strong, united community. By the end of Part 3, Jackson's role in Redstone was clear. He was the heart of the town, the one people could turn to in times of need, and the one who quietly inspired everyone around him. But the seasons were changing, and with spring approaching, new opportunities, new friendships, and new adventures awaited. Jackson knew life would continue to bring surprises, and he was ready to face them, always with courage, kindness, and the quiet strength that had made him Redstone's last cowboy. Spring arrived in Redstone with a gentle warmth, melting the snow and bringing life back to the town. Flowers bloomed along the streets, birds chirped happily in the trees, and the river flowed calmly once again. Jackson Cole, the town's last cowboy, felt a renewed energy. After a long winter of challenges and hard work, he could finally enjoy the simple joys of life. But he also knew that the coming months would bring new responsibilities and opportunities, as life in Redstone never truly stayed still. One morning, Jackson received a letter delivered by a traveling writer. It was from an old friend, someone he had met during his wandering years, inviting him to visit a nearby city for a celebration of cowboys and ranchers. Jackson thought about leaving, if only for a short while, but he realized that his heart was in Redstone. The town needed him, and the people had become like family. After some thought, he decided to decline the invitation. Redstone was where he belonged, and his place was with the community that had come to rely on him. Life in Redstone had changed over the years, not because of sudden events, but because of the everyday courage and care that Jackson showed. One day, a group of children approached him with a problem. They had discovered that a small section of the school's roof was leaking, and water was starting to damage the library books. Jackson smiled and promised to help. He gathered a few townsfolk, and together they repaired the roof, reinforcing it so it could withstand future rains. The children watched in awe as Jackson worked, learning the value of teamwork, patience, and skill. Meanwhile, Jackson's friendship with Sarah grew deeper. They spent more time together, not just working on farms or town projects, but sharing quiet moments in the evenings, talking about their dreams, reading books, and even cooking meals for each other. The townspeople noticed the bond between them, and it inspired others to see the beauty of friendship and care in everyday life. Though they never rushed or forced feelings, there was a calm understanding that something meaningful was developing between them. Spring also brought new challenges. A neighboring town faced a shortage of food due to a late frost, and they asked Redstone for help. Jackson immediately organized a group to gather extra produce, grains, and supplies. Together, they loaded wagons and carefully delivered them to the struggling town. The gesture strengthened ties between the communities, and Jackson realized that Redstone's kindness and courage could have an impact far beyond its borders. One afternoon, while checking on Thunder in the stables, Jackson noticed that the horse seemed restless. Thunder nudged him gently, looking toward the hills outside town. Jackson realized that the horse was reminding him of adventure and exploration. Though he loved Redstone, he knew that he had a life of experiences and skills that could also help others. He thought about planning occasional trips to nearby towns, teaching people about horses, riding, and ranch life, and sharing the wisdom he had gained over the years. Redstone continued to thrive under Jackson's guidance. People worked together, helped one another, and celebrated both small and big victories. Festivals, harvest events, and school gatherings became opportunities for the town to come together, laugh, and create memories. Jackson often found himself in the center of these celebrations, not seeking attention, but quietly supporting everyone and ensuring that each event went smoothly. But one of the most important changes in Redstone was the way the townspeople treated one another. Inspired by Jackson's example, they began to notice the value in small acts of kindness. Neighbors helped with chores without being asked, children looked after younger siblings, and adults offered guidance and support when challenges arose. Redstone was no longer just a town. It had become a community, strong and united, with Jackson as its quiet, steady heart. As the days grew longer and warmer, Jackson spent more time with Sarah. They worked together on her farm, repaired old fences, and planted new crops. They talked about the future, not in words of pressure, but in hopes and dreams. Jackson realized that home wasn't just a place, it was people who cared for one another. And in Sarah, he found someone who understood him, someone who shared his values of courage, kindness, and responsibility. One evening, as the sun set over the hills, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Jackson rode Thunder to the top of a ridge overlooking Redstone. He looked at the town below, children playing, families chatting, and neighbors helping each other. A sense of peace washed over him. All the challenges, the storms, the fires, and the floods had tested the town and him, but they had grown stronger together. Jackson realized that he had found more than just a home. He had found a life worth staying for. Redstone celebrated Jackson in quiet ways. They didn't need grand ceremonies or loud speeches. The way they trusted him, laughed with him, and supported one another was enough. Jackson, though humble, felt deeply grateful. He knew that the town's spirit was a reflection of the care, courage, and kindness that he had tried to embody every day. By the end of spring, Jackson's story had come full circle. He was no longer the wandering cowboy seeking a place to belong. He had become Redstone's protector, friend, and role model. The town had grown stronger, safer, and happier because of the way he lived his life, with honesty, bravery, and quiet generosity. And in Sarah, he had found someone to share the joys, challenges, and simple moments of life. As Jackson rode thunder through the streets one last time that day, he smiled at the familiar sights: the school, the river, the stables, and the homes of the people he had come to love. He knew that Redstone would face more challenges in the future, but it would do so with courage, unity, and hope. And he would be there, quietly guiding, helping, and inspiring as he always had. Jackson Cole, the town's last cowboy, had found something more than adventure and skill. He had found belonging, friendship, love, and a purpose that went beyond himself. Redstone was no longer just a stop on his journey, it was home, and he was finally where he was meant to be.